So you graduate, you get the success, win the award with the Coach V book. What
Yeah.
was sort of the next step in the writing career?
Yeah, I realized there's no money in writing your own books because, that $10,000 check was a lot of money at that time, but to the amount of work that went into it, it was crazy. I mean, it was an insane amount of work and just very little money for the work. And so I realized quickly that the way that you write books are and make money, right? Because it was important to me at that time to find the balance was you're either John Grisham, you're writing a legal thriller and you're getting $1 million advance every time, or you're writing books for other people. And what I realized is in the Jimmy V book is I don't like going on, radio shows. And I went on probably 50 plus radio shows across the country in like 30 days. I'd wake up, radio show class. But what I realized is that the marketing is a grind. It is a grind. So I asked myself, how can I do what I love?
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. This is a podcast where I get to interview founding attorneys and hear about all the cool shit that they've done and are doing. And today's guest is doing some cool stuff. He's a criminal defense lawyer by day and an award-winning author by night. So we're going to dive into all that. Or maybe it's early morning. I don't know. You can tell me. But today's guest is Justin Spizman. He's an attorney here in Atlanta. So, Justin, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your firm, how many people are there, what kind of stuff you guys do, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, so I'm Justin Spizman. The name of the law firm is the Spizman Firm. We have a partner, Scott Fortis. We have 3 associates, an of-counsel lawyer, and then we have a remarkably great staff that does all the heavy lifting. So I think there's 12 of us now. Our bread and butter is criminal defense, from traffic tickets to serious felonies. So that's kind of what we wake up and do every day. We have some subspecialties that are kind of one-offs, but similar to, probably some crossover in the criminal world. I do a fair share of tribunal or disciplinary hearings. I do a fair share of protective orders, both prosecuting them and defending them. There's usually a criminal component to it, like domestic violence. A couple other areas, sometimes some complicated civil litigation that has some sort of crossover, fraud or criminal aspect to it. So, but the traditional cases that we handle are people that have been arrested and accused of criminal acts.
You dabble in some personal injury too, right? Or no?
Yeah, dabble's the way to put it. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was sending out a lot of PI cases, and we still do send out a great deal of PI cases. But we have good relationships with our clients, and some of these car wrecks are kind of fastballs down the middle. So we began handling those mostly because I really love trying cases, and not to suggest that my job is easier or harder, but I think it's easier to ask for money than it is to ask for freedom. So
Yeah.
there's something to that in my mind that it felt like my skill set crossed over well. So generally the cases that we're taking on the PI scale are ones that we are litigating. So I enjoy a courtroom, and that's where I'm probably my most comfortable.
So did you always know you wanted to be a trial lawyer? Is that, there's some people that go to law school knowing that's what they want to do, or is that something that just sort of happened later?
I'm still not entirely sure I want to be a trial lawyer, but what happened, I think, for me is I went to law school somewhat begrudgingly. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but my parents insisted that I get a graduate degree, and I was always good at arguing with people, not necessarily winning the arguments, but arguing. So decided to go to law school, and once I got out of law school, unsure what I wanted to do. I was wonderfully lucky to get a job in the Fulton County Solicitor's Office as a prosecutor. Took that job and started trying cases, and that's kind of when I got hooked, just being in the courtroom litigating, just duking it out. And when you're a prosecutor, you get to try cases against all different levels of lawyers. So defense lawyers would walk into courtrooms, and some were remarkably talented, others were young and inexperienced like me. But I love the challenge. I love trying cases against the best lawyers in the state of Georgia. Even if I lost, it still felt like fun. And so I just got addicted to it. And once I got tired of working for the government, as many people do, I felt like I was underpaid, and it was hard to see where this was all going. I flipped over. I also didn't particularly love putting people in jail. It was not something I enjoyed doing. Some people need to go to jail, but I always felt somewhat conflicted. And I think I came to terms with the fact that I would be better off defending people and giving them a fair shot at things than I would prosecuting them. And it pays just a little bit better being on this side sometimes,
Just a little bit, probably.
just a little bit.
So tell me about, trying the cases. I mean, what does that look like when you're in a solicitor's office or prosecutor's office? I mean, is it 1 a week? Is it 2 a week? Is it like 3 a day? I mean,
Yeah.
what does that look like? And are they jury trials mostly or bench trials?
Yeah, so part of it depends on where you're prosecuting, and part of it depends on at what level. Felony prosecutors, district attorneys are trying less cases, but they're trying most times longer cases. So instead of a 1 or 2 day trial, they're trying, a week or longer. I mean, I think the quickest way, probably the quickest felony trial you're going to have is going to be 3, 4 days, and they usually seem to last a week. And so you're, week on, a few weeks off, week on, few weeks off. Obviously, you get caught in these major felony trials with lots of witnesses that can take weeks, if not months. Right now, there's one of those going on in New York with a famous rapper. And so you will find yourself at the felony level, just more marathons. In the solicitor's office, misdemeanors, sprints, 1 day trials, 2 day trials, a lot of DUIs, a lot of batteries, a lot of thefts. So when you're in a solicitor's office, you are doing back to back a lot of times. It seems like you have a trial week and you're trying cases one after the other. Whereas in a DA's office, it's less number of trials, but longer trials.
I was talking to somebody a while back, and we were talking about surfing, and he said that, learning to surf was sort of hard because you got to wait for the wave. So it's hard to get enough reps, at least early on, to really get good at it. And it's sort of like that with trials. I'm thinking, if you're doing a couple a week or more than that, you're picking a lot of juries, man. You're learning how to talk to a jury, right?
Yeah, I learned as I've developed as a trial lawyer that I used to think that you would win a trial in a closing argument. And then I realized that you win trials when you cross-examine witnesses, adversarial witnesses. And then I think at this point in my career, I realized that you win trials when you pick juries. And that's, I think, what I've settled on is that if you want to be a successful trial lawyer, you have to intuitively figure out what 6 or 12 people are going to be your shepherds, are going to protect your client, are going to be the beacons of truth or light. And so now, yeah, you get to be real good at it because you keep doing it again and again. And I think when I look at jury selection now, I look at it in such a different light. It's not just an opportunity to, for me to talk. And if I'm talking, we're not doing very well. I want other people to talk. I want them to tell me things that they wouldn't otherwise want to share. But yeah, but you just like pound it out, right? You're picking, when you're a prosecutor, you're picking a jury, trying a case. Next day, picking a jury, trying a case. But that repetition is remarkable because, picking a jury in a misdemeanor case and picking a jury in a felony case are no different. You're in a felony case, you're managing more people because the panels are bigger. You're choosing from larger groups of people. So you have to do more multitasking, but the fundamental aspect of who's the right fit here doesn't change at all. So the little sprints are much more effective to really learn how to do it.
Yeah, and I would think, it's if you're doing a trial every 5 weeks or 1 a year, the lessons you learn and to be able to quickly iterate and maybe say, all right, I'm going to tweak that thing and then tweak this, it's harder to do. But if you're doing high volume of picking juries, be like, okay, that didn't work yesterday. Try something else today, right?
Yeah, and to try something else in misdemeanor cases doesn't have as catastrophic of an impact as to try something else in a felony case. What I loved about being a misdemeanor prosecutor to begin my career is, look, as a government representative, you want to do a good job, you want to pursue justice. But at the end of the day, if you lost, you know, it's graphic, but there isn't a body on the floor that we're dealing with here. We're dealing with, okay, so this guy who stole a bunch of stuff from Target will go steal some more stuff from Target. He'll be back. The drunk driver will probably drink and drive again, especially when I was prosecuting, there's no Uber or Lyft. Unfortunately, domestic violence is often repetitious. You see people that is generational. And so, if you lost, you didn't have to look at someone and say, I know that you lost someone that you cared about. I'm sorry that we couldn't find justice for you. So it was a lot less stressful than what I'm doing now.
Yeah. It's funny you're talking about a jury. So a number of years ago, I guess pre-COVID. I was living in DeKalb, and I got called in for jury duty. It was a DUI trial, and it's a small, I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
6 with one alternate for the jury. And they start polling the jury, doing jury selection, and I think 5 of the potential jurors had DUIs.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I actually might end up on this jury. And sure enough, I did. And did openings. They called the police officer, and they said, all right, we're going to take a break, set up the camera to do the dash cam. We went into the jury room, and then kept extending. And finally they called us out and said they reached a plea deal. So I guess they didn't like the way we looked. They said, all right, let's get it done.
Someone didn't like their jury that day. So, I mean, you never know who it is,
Yeah.
but someone walked up to the other side and said, "I don't like my shot with this 6. You got something to work it out."
All right, so let's move on. So you decided to leave the prosecutor's office and go to the private sector. So take me through sort of that progression.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting progression. The first thing I did is I joined a boutique DUI defense firm that is no longer in existence, and I kind of became their horse. I mean, I was running. It was a woman that owned the practice, and she had me. I was a former prosecutor. I had a head of steam. I wanted to try everything. I wanted to generate business. So I ran. I mean, I ran every courthouse I could run to. I loved it. It was more fun than I could imagine. And toward the end of our relationship, it felt like I was doing all the work and she was taking all the money. I was the associate, so that's understandable. But this is probably a good early lesson to learn. We had agreed on a fee split when I brought in cases, and I wasn't getting paid that. So I hung around thinking the best things would happen and everyone would do the right thing, and they never did. So, like, I was, I don't know if y'all remember Bobby Petrino's coach the Falcons. In the middle of the night, I just left. And I made sure that ethically I did everything I was supposed to do. I contacted all the clients, told them I was leaving, I was gone. And I just decided to just start up my own law firm overnight. It was literally overnight. And I was lucky enough where I had friends that had space. And I just said, hey, look, can I have an office? And I said, look, I don't want to spend any money on it. I said, how about I give you, 5% of whatever I bring in. And obviously within 2 months, that was a horrible deal for me. And so eventually I had to say, look, let's, formalize this. And I did it. And so for about a year, I just ran my own firm and had no clue what I was doing, but people would call me. And the criminal defense community is a really wonderful community. It's different than the PI bar. Nothing wrong with PI lawyers, but PIs are a very competitive group of lawyers. Same with family. Criminal defense, probably because we all feel like everyone hates us. The judges sometimes don't like us. The prosecutors sometimes don't like us. But we just have each other, right? We're like, we're all in this together. So we support each other. So people would send me cases, not just junk, traffic tickets, whatever it was. And so I just kept chipping away and building. And then there was a legal business consultant who I gave a call to. And I said, hey, I'm interested in potentially trying to scale. What do I do? And we started talking, and he suggested that I call a couple of his references just to confirm that he's as good as they said he was. And one of those references ended up becoming my partner because the business consultant was Alvaro 3A. He said, well, rather than you guys maybe talk as references, what would you think about joining? And a former partner, he had more business than he needed, and he was an expensive lawyer, and he needed an associate at just a lower mark. So I joined up with Mike, and I became his kind of counsel, but I was an associate lawyer. Of counsel is just a fancy way of saying that we had a different fee split. He wasn't paying me a salary. And so, like many of my deals, I outperformed it very quickly. And then after outperforming it for a few years, I think Mike was tired of paying me what he had to pay me to be his associate. And I felt like I was giving away a lot of money. So we both agreed it might make sense to become partners. So that was kind of the next step.
So going back, I guess the first firm that you left, another lesson there for the owners: do what you say you're going to do. Pay your people, and then treat them right, whatever that means, because you don't want to kill that golden goose. I mean, and it's so hard to find talent nowadays. You got to keep them happy. So
No, I mean, I look back at things that people have done or things that I've done, and I'm so thankful she screwed me. Oh my gosh, because I probably would have sat there for another year or 2 years thinking that we're going to become partners, paying off all this money, and it would have been horrible. And that moment when when she did what she did, it was catastrophic for me. I mean, I think it was like $30,000 that she took from me.
Wow.
And because of that, I mean, I remember we were just about to have our first child, and that, I mean, $30,000, that's a lot of money, period. But at that moment, it was like the most money ever to me. It was almost my whole salary as a prosecutor. So it was very difficult, very challenging. And the greatest story that came out of it was I ended up filing a lawsuit and I ended up settling it. And then there was a non-payment of judgment. I ended up garnishing. So it was, I never really got much money, but I was proud of myself.
You went
So
all the way.
I just, it's sometimes, and I think this is a good lesson. I've learned this. Most fights aren't worth fighting. If a client screws you over a few $1,000s, if they want some money back, sometimes you just say, well, if I can resolve this without a bad review or without a bar complaint. Although the quickest way for me to not do what you want me to do is to threaten to call the bar on me, because I'll tell you real quickly, I've done nothing wrong and I will give you the number. Have a good day. But you learn that you have to pick your battles, and most of these battles aren't worth picking because the time that you waste battling is time you can use to grow or scale or make money.
That's a great point. I do a lot of these, and the money is big enough to where you have to fight about it. But and the other point I'll say too, you bring this up. I remember when I was a young associate, the amount of money that would have been meaningful to me at that time was really like hardly anything to the partners. And I was just like, oh my God, just give me an extra little, and it's like, wouldn't mean anything. And you guys get to spread it around. Just give me a little.
Yeah.
It means so much, because when, you're building a family, all the stuff when you're young, paying off debt, all that stuff, those little bits count. So yeah, lesson out there, don't kill the golden goose or the workhorse or whatever. So yeah. Okay. So then you ended up being partners. And then recently, I guess you ended up starting your own firm, Spizman firm. So what's that been like?
Yeah, it's great. I have a law partner, Scott Fortis, and he's fantastic. Works every bit as hard as I do. And we have three associates. We have an of counsel lawyer who's a senior lawyer that is fantastic and wonderful. He does a lot of federal work. It's just great having his energy in the office. And he wanted space, and we need a little bit of help running around, so he's willing to trade us. And then we have a fantastic support staff. I mean, we have, I'm gonna say we're up to 7 paralegals. Even our receptionist has some paralegal responsibilities. And I think the lesson that you just kind of outlined is, the importance of realizing that your team members are just crucial. So my paralegal, Robin, who handles my criminal cases, and Raquel handles my injury cases, they've been with me. Robin's been with me now for 5+ years. Raquel's been with me for 12+ years. Hopefully they won't listen to this, but I think I'd do anything to make them happy. And they're appreciated. And I try to find creative ways, not just in the sense of telling them, and showing them by paying them a fair salary, but also just letting them know I appreciate everything they do. And when they do something great, just letting them know, but also, just doing things that are thoughtful. And so I know I diverted a little bit from where we were headed, but
No,
so
that's
we're
a
about,
really good point.
we're 13, 14 people deep, and we try to create a great work environment. I think that we have 3 rules: show up on time, be nice, and do your job. Those are my rules. It frustrates me when people are late. It's just a personal pet peeve. But if someone is late, they call in, they say, hey, I'm in traffic. I'm fine with it. They got to leave early, go to a doctor's appointment. Just let me know. Being nice is extremely important, because there's no reason why we can't be nice to our clients. These are people that support us and give us an opportunity to do what we do every day. So we respect that, and then we do our job. Like, I don't want to hover over people. I'm the managing partner, and I want to manage. I want to lead. I want to be visionary, future focused, not sitting here telling people, hey, look, you're really rude to that client, or hey, you didn't follow these things when you were supposed to follow them. So we really do try to hire good people, but also once we get good people, once we get those all-stars, like, do everything I can to keep them, like anything and everything. And I found that if I just create a respectful working environment that cares about them as people, and you got to figure out whatever, what's like, what's your love language, right? I mean, let's just figure out what makes people happy. Some people just like a gift every now and again. That's really easy. Some people like to be told that their work is fantastic, or when they go out of their way to be recognized. I mean, other people just want to be left alone. So you just got to figure out like how they thrive and then create an environment that is consistent with that. It's amazing how many lawyers are just not caring to their team members. And that to me like blows my mind because I kind of kid like, Robin and Raquel. It's like I have my wife, my kids, and then they're the next two most important women in my life. So I really do what I can to keep them happy.
Yeah, another good point there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know when we met. I mean, it's been at least a decade. It's been a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've always, my sense of you, and you sort of described it here, is that you are a go-getter, man. You just make it happen. You're always running around just making it happen. So how do you get your clients now? And maybe, take us through. I mean, you were in a DA's office where you didn't have to get clients. I mean, you just get your files stacked on your desk and all of a sudden you got to go get them. So how did you figure that out, and what has worked for you, and has it changed at all over time?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think what has worked for me is, and this is obvious, but relationships, right? From the lawyer side of things, I've built good relationships, like just with you. Like, we met 10 years ago. We had a lunch. I remember it was over in, what was it? It was over on not Howell Mill, North Side. It was at that Greasy Spoon Diner. That was like
That's right.
what the hell was that called? I remember we had that, we had that first meal. I was like, I was a good dude, right? Like, so I tend to be attracted to people I just would like to hang out with anyway. So like just people I would go to a ball game with or have a beer, just, come on their podcast, like friends. And so, that, and then you just got to follow up, every now and again, whatever it is, just call them up, text them, just help them whenever they can help them. So, it started with just, generating relationships with lawyers as just friends, people I want to be around. And then after that, what I realized really built my practice is two things. Number one, helping people. Like to this day, right? I'm not a traffic lawyer, but I probably handle 2 to 3 traffic tickets a month for other lawyers or lawyers' family members or lawyers' paralegals, just as a courtesy, just as like, hey, no problem, happy to do it. And I don't do it selfishly, like, because my thing is this: I can't refer you a case every day. I don't know what's coming in the door. I don't know when I can send you a great case, and I might not be able to send you a case, right? But you need help, I can help you. And if I can just go get a traffic ticket handled for you so you don't have to mess with it, like, you're going to send me cases. And again, I don't do it because I want the cases, but I do it because it's easy. It's no hair off my back. You're a friend. I'm happy to help you. But that has been a humongous situation, like, for me to build, because all these lawyers, call it what it is. They owe me one. And how do they pay me back? They send me cases. Like, I hope I never need a divorce lawyer. I don't intend to ever need one. So I'm probably not going to ever need a favor from a divorce lawyer. But when they get a call for a family violence case, or they get a call for a DUI, Justin, end of story. So that's been a humongous way. The other way is I do good work for people. You have to service your clients. If you do a good job for your clients, everyone you take care of, whether there's a traffic ticket or a major felony, they will remember you and they will call you. And that is, people don't think about that, but it takes time. You can't build that book of business overnight. I think it took me 10 years to get to the point where I'm consistently always busy. But those 10 years, there were ups and there were downs, there were slow, there was fast. Now, there's more work than I can take. And so that has helped me, because now when I have a client that's a jerk, or a client that wants to negotiate me down from reasonable fees, I can just say no thanks, and that's a good thing, because then the client that's willing to see my value will come through the door, or the client that's not a complete asshole to my clients, or sorry, to my staff, is going to be there. And so I've just really kind of built the business organically through great lawyer networking and just taking care of people. Like, I think that's key. Like, people forget about the importance of just taking care of people.
Yeah, great points there. And you're planting seeds all over the place. You don't know which ones may grow and which ones may bear fruit. Some may bear a lot of fruit, and others, and you just continually plant the seeds, water the seeds, and hopefully good things come. And a lot of it's just a function of time. You might get lucky. It's like that old saying, you can't force a 9-month pregnancy to happen in 1 month. A lot of the relationship building, maybe you get lucky, but it's just going to take time.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask this: do you have like a system or anything, a way to sort of stay in touch with all the clients you've now helped over all these many
Yeah.
years?
So I'll tell you, I think the next phase of my career, what I'd like to do is we've certainly doubled down and focused more on internet. But the way we've done it is not, I mean, I don't pay, my traffic division pays a lot of money every month to Google because that's the game, right? People want traffic lawyers and they're willing to hire a traffic lawyer off of the internet. It's, $1,000, $500. It's an easy decision, right? It's not a life altering decision. But with criminal cases, people, I mean, look, people will take the internet as a point to start, but they want to meet with you. They want to talk to you. But the most important thing that they want is they want to see good reviews. And so we work, I mean, very hard to protect reviews. I mean, on AVVO, I have like 255-star reviews, all former clients. On Google, we have almost 200 5-star reviews. And so that's been like right now where we're at, right? Building. The next phase, when I can just find the time and energy to do it, is take this database we have of I mean, I probably have tens of thousands of people in that database and figuring out how I can kind of like like you have a great, newsletter that you send out with like a key, topic or something like that. I think I saw covenants, non-compete covenants that you sent out. And I read those, like I like them. I think it's great. I wish I had the capacity to do it. I really have no complaints in the day and age we're living in. I can literally hire someone to do it. It's just doing that.
Well, maybe that's a good segue into your second job or your
Yeah.
hobby, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some excuses. You're running a full time practice, still doing the
Yeah.
work. You got a family and kids. You're doing all that stuff, but you're also an author, an award winning. You won the Georgia Author of the Year award. But tell me about your writing. So, how did you get into
Yeah.
it? What do you do? I mean, at this point, how many books have you written?
Yes, I probably worked on in some capacity, meaning, whether I've actually written them or ghost written them or edited them or collaborated or conceptualized, probably over 100 at this point. I've been professionally writing. I mean, I've been professionally writing for probably 15 years. I've been writing for probably 20. The first 5 years was just kind of walking around in the dark, figuring out what the hell I was doing. My mom was a New York Times bestselling author, so I grew up in a writing family. It was always something that I loved. I had a knack for writing, English. If you look at my SAT breakdown, it was like almost 800 verbal and like 500 math, which I had to get a calculator out to figure out what that equaled. So it was the strength. I mean, it was undoubtedly something that I've just been blessed with, just having good DNA. And so I kind of cultivated it. I love to write, and because of that, I had an idea about a book in law school. I approached my mom with it, and she said, "Hey, let's try to do something here." And so I put together a proposal. She kind of gave me the format for it. And I remember getting my first book deal, and it was like the most amazing thing. And I was in New York, and it was a book about how to survive law school. And this is, you want to talk about full circle. So the guy that wrote the foreword for my first book was George Ross, who was senior exec counsel. He was Trump's lawyer 20 something years ago, right? He was, if you remember The Apprentice, he was the old guy in the boardroom,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's right.
Insane, right? So he was in town in Atlanta at an event. I just walked up to him and said, "Hey, I got this book I'm working on. Would you write the forward?" He's like, "Sure." Just a nice guy. So we get the book deal, and I remember they offered me a $10,000 advance. It was like the most money I've ever seen at that point in my life, and I was like blown away. I'm like, these guys are going to give me $10,000 to write a book. I'm like, this is insane. These people are morons. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I remember I was in New York, and we got the book deal, and I went to Bloomingdale's and bought like everything I could buy. Right? It was like I blew like half of the advance in like one shopping spree. It was awesome. And so then, that came out, and then it was cool because I interviewed all my professors, I interviewed all my classmates for it. It was awesome.
Let me ask, is that book still out there, still getting sold, or?
Man, I think it's out of publication. They probably could find, actually, interestingly enough, I think I lost the trademark this year. Like I got a notification because I trademarked the Insider's Guide, and I just got a notification that it's back in the public forum. And I
Oh
didn't, I,
man.
I didn't make an effort to save it. But yes, I wrote that book, and it was fine. It did fine. It was cool. And then a couple years later, this is probably when it all became real. Is I had this idea to do a book about famous basketball coach Jim Valvano. And I approached his brothers, Bob and Nick Valvano, Bob being he's kind of a celebrity sports journalist, reporter. And then Nick runs the V Foundation for Cancer Research, which raised over probably 150 million at this point to find a cure for cancer. And I had this idea to write a book about this famous speech he gave, which I'm sure people listening have heard it. And
Mm-hmm.
I got a whole lot of no's and no's, and eventually I bothered Nick enough where he said yes. We got ESPN to give us the rights, and we wrote the book, and it hit. I mean, it was very successful. I did podcasts. I went up to the spring game at NC State. I mean, it was just a home run. And I won Georgia Author of the Year for that book. And that's kind of when, things got a little bit real. And then I turned that into another
So,
book. Yeah.
so real quick, when you wrote that book, where were you? Were you practicing law at this point? Where were you?
So that was my third year in law school. So my first year I wrote The Insider's Guide, and then my third year I wrote that. And so going out of law school and into my first year as a practicing lawyer.
Is when it hit. So, okay, look, man, I know third year law school is sort of a joke. I mean, you don't really need it.
Yeah.
But, first 2 years pretty heavy. So
Yeah.
how are you managing all of that? What's your process real quick before we get into more of your books?
You're giving me too much credit to assume I was managing it. I'll tell you just a funny story. I remember I didn't manage it. I didn't fail out of law school, but I also didn't do great in law school my first, year because I was writing the book. I was, practicing law. I was in law school. I was having fun, doing what you do when you're still kind of in college, but not really in college. I just come home, to Atlanta. All my buddies were here. Again, it was a lot of worlds colliding. So I didn't manage it very well. I worked hard, but I probably would have done better in law school had I not been working on that book. But I remember my whatever the research class I was taking, the legal writing class, I got a C in it. And it really pissed me off because so I'm sitting here, get a book deal, right? I'm writing this book about succeeding in law school, and I get a C in legal writing. So I remember walking across the stage when I graduated. Just so happened my legal writing professor was giving out a diploma. So she gives me the diploma and congratulations, blah, 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 blah. I say, I've been, there's one thing I want to tell you. So what's that? I go, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that ever took your legal writing class that got a C, but got a book deal that same year. She started laughing at me, just the stupid things I remember.
Did you
Yeah.
give her a signed copy? See here.
I gave everyone a signed copy that would buy one. So when it was that first book, I wanted to sell books. So anyone that would buy one would get a signed copy.
Yeah. Okay, so you graduate, you get the success, win the award with the Coach V book. What
Yeah.
was sort of the next step in the writing career?
Yeah, I realized there's no money in writing your own books because, that $10,000 check was a lot of money at that time, but to the amount of work that went into it, it was crazy. I mean, it was an insane amount of work and just very little money for the work. And so I realized quickly that the way that you write books are and make money, right? Because it was important to me at that time to find the balance was you're either John Grisham, you're writing a legal thriller and you're getting $1 million advance every time, or you're writing books for other people. And what I realized is in the Jimmy V book is I don't like going on, radio shows. And I went on probably 50 plus radio shows across the country in 30 days. I'd wake up, radio show class. But what I realized is that the marketing is a grind. It is a grind. So I asked myself, how can I do what I love, but monetize this? And I realized, wait a second, if I write books for other people that can't write books, I can charge whatever I want. And if they'll pay me that money. So the next book was this referral. And I remember I wrote the whole book for $5,000. I remember that. I was and I thought I was ripping her off. I'm like, this woman's paying me $5,000 to write her book. And I feel like I'm just taking advantage of her. And so that book got out. And then I did a book with a woman named Molly Fletcher, who's a female sports agent. She's the female Jerry Maguire, negotiated over $500 million for remarkable athletes, coaches, really big time. And I did that book. And then she introduced me to Ted Sundquist, who's the former general manager of the Denver Broncos. He had just finished his run right before they won the Super Bowls in Elway and all that good stuff. So he wanted to do a book. And so I did a book with him. So it started very quickly transforming.
So tell me, what's it like now? What's the business like now? I mean,
Yeah.
do people coming to you? Are you trying to pitch the service? I mean, or a little both?
Yeah, it's both to some degree. I mean, most of my, now I'm at the point where most of the books that I'm getting are, people that are calling me up and saying, "Hey, we need help with a book," or it it may be specifically like an agent that has either I've worked with in the past or knows me. I get a fair share of books from publishers. When I worked on a book and collaborated with John Quinones and Maria Elena Salinas about Uvalde and the Robb Elementary shooting, that was a book that kind of found me. Disney Publishing contacted me, and they had known that I'd worked with the editor at the time on another book, and we just had a good relationship, and I delivered a good product for her. So she contacted me. So it's a fair share of referrals, probably 80%. Occasionally, I'll just get excited about something. I'll see something, I'll hear something, and I'll pursue it. And that's what I've done. I probably do that once or twice a year.
So I don't know what you can or can't share, but I don't know. There's some of the highlights, some of the cool folks you've
Yeah.
gotten to meet over the years.
Oh man, it's part of the reason why I do this is because it's just a lot of fun. I've worked with Evander Holyfield. I've worked with obviously Molly and Ted were fantastic former clients. I started to work on a book with Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. I have to think about this, right? Because I got to think about who I can talk about and who I can't, because there are
Yeah.
ones I can't. One of my favorite stories, and it's not a household name, but it's a really important book to me, was one I did with Keenan Lowe. Keenan was a football coach, played in the NFL. He also played at University of Oregon. He came home to a small school in Portland in the off season after taking this team on really a historic run. He was called to retrieve a student, and as he walks into the school building, the student walks out of a classroom armed with a shotgun,
Mm.
was about to shoot the school up, and Keenan's faced eye to eye with him. And instead of tackling him or he takes the gun out of his hand and gives him a hug, and it becomes a viral story. And I remember the reason why this is such an important book for me is COVID hit, and I lost two really big clients, 6 figures worth of writing fees overnight gone. No more criminal cases. I'm looking around going, I'm in trouble here. Like I don't know what's going to happen here, but this isn't good. I'm watching ESPN. I see this 30 for 30 about this coach, Keenan Lowe, and his amazing story. And his story is remarkable. I mean, it traverses, mental health and drugs. He was one of the coaches when Colin Kaepernick took a knee for the 49ers. I mean, just insane stuff. And then so I see it and I go on a LinkedIn and I find him. I said, "Hey, my name's Justin Spizman. I'm a writer. I like writing sports books. Do you want to work together?" And he responds a week later. He says, "I've been thinking about doing a book, but I'm a high school football coach. I don't have any money." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have any clients, so you and I are going to be perfect for each other." I go, "Why don't we agree that we'll just, we'll do this on spec, let's just agree that whatever we make, whether it's $1 or a gazillion dollars, we'll just split it 50-50, and I'll go to work for you." And so Keenan is truly one of just the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. And so he's like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's roll." So we start, and then we start working on this project. We start putting together this proposal. We start coming out of COVID. And then I get a call from Keenan. He's like, "Dude, I got this call from this guy, Adam." And no, it was Adam's Brad. Brad. And he told me that he saw my story on ESPN and he'd like to see if I would be interested in selling the rights for a movie. And he said that he is Dwayne The Rock Johnson's agent. So, naturally, I'm like, bullshit, right? This day and age scam. So I go, I'm like, well, wait a second. He is. And so during that time, The Rock began negotiating, his team began negotiating with Keenan to buy his movie rights. And so then the book got very serious very quickly. And so we were shopping it. And it was one of those things where you're shopping it. And so WME, William Morris Endeavor, took the book. And so mega agents, and they call us up. We had been shopping it for a week, maybe. It takes time to get book deals. They're like, "Hey, there's this publisher, very reputable publisher, and they want to make an offer on the book." And like, "Yeah, sure." And so we have the offer. So they tell us what the offer is. And like, without going into details, it was 10 times more than any advanced design that I've ever seen. And it was like earth-shatteringly like big. And so I'm almost in tears because it's been a tough year for everyone. And it just felt like this moment. And Keenan's one of those guys where he doesn't have much. He didn't at the time. You just root for him. He's just a best guy in the world. And so it was, like one of these moments. I just lost my father. It felt like so much was coming together and the world was just like, it was like looking out for me. And the only thing I could say to the agent was, well, if they'll give us that much, they'll surely give us more. So, so Keita goes, your world, man. So we call him back up and we asked for more. And they said yes. And so
Nice.
that sealed it. And it wasn't about the money. I mean, the money was great, but it was just about we built a relationship together. We were both two good people. We went on a great journey. We did good work. And then like life just, did the rest.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it's a good
So,
one.
is a movie in development? Are we going to see this
No,
thing? Or?
interestingly enough, I don't know. I think so what I've learned is, the Amazons, the Netflix, what they do is they buy millions and millions of dollars of content. And part of the reason they buy it is someone else can't buy it, right? It's to take it off the market. And then they
Mhm.
have full rights to produce it or not. So there hasn't been a movie yet. There needs to be a movie because it's an amazing movie. But I don't, they have the rights. And what was funny is that they made Keenan an offer. And I remember Keenan telling me, he's like, it's just not, I don't know. I'm like, Keenan, this is amazing. Like, they want to buy your life story. He goes, yeah, but next thing you know, there's going to be some old white guy playing me. He goes, like, because I don't know, man. It's my life. It feels like I should get some more for it. I mean, it just, he was in the most, wonderful way that he tells that story. It just truly was like he's so authentic, and he would never sell his soul for $1, whether it be $1 million or $1. He just wanted to make sure that the story was true and authentic.
That is an incredible story,
That's a
man.
good one.
Real quick, thanks for listening. If you're getting any value out of this podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. It would really mean a lot to me. Now back to the show. So I want to shift. So stay on the topic of writing, but there's books. A lot of lawyers write books.
Yeah.
To sort
Yep.
of market their practice or tell a story, whatever.
Yep.
Do you have one of those? Have you ever done one of those? Do you have thoughts about those?
Yeah, so no, I haven't done one for myself, nor do I have any interest in doing one for myself. I contemplate one day, like Henry David Thoreau, like moving to Walden Pond and writing the next great American novella, or maybe just telling some good stories. Like, I don't know. I mean, one day I'll write a book for myself, I guess. But
Well, the way I view I mean, it's for your kids and your grandkids. So you get to
yeah,
tell your story because there's a lot of stuff in your head, a lot of stories that maybe they're not old enough
yes,
to hear yet, but
yes.
one day they'll have it. That might be one way to look at it.
Yes, it is. It is. And so maybe one day I just don't have time now. But with that being said, yeah, I do work on a lot of lawyers' books. I probably get a call every few months about a lawyer that wants to do a book. Sometimes it's, an academic based book, like a personal injury, like a playbook, or some sort of area of specialty, a legal malpractice book, whatever it may be. So I do a fair share of that work, and they're remarkable. I mean, calling cards and advertisements, and one of the really part of the reason why I write, and I still do it. I mean, yeah, it's some, the money's good, it's fine. I do it because it's a great opportunity to just learn, and so I become this like subject matter expert on. I mean, I've written books on leadership, on building culture, on like every topic you can imagine in a self-help world, scaling businesses. And I learn every time I write one of these books. And so because I started my career really as like a business writer, that's what I did, like self-help business development. So like if you think about all the fads that came through, it was leadership, and then it was culture, and then it's like health and wellness. And so like I'm doing a lot of these types of books. Like I'm doing a book right now with a very famous dietitian in Canada, which is wonderful. And I'm learning more about the diet mindset than I ever thought I would need to. I'm not a dieter. I'm a gym rat, and I eat, grilled chicken
You
every
got a
day.
6-pack now, right? You got a
Let me
6-pack.
tell you, right? But it's so interesting the way that that the world works in terms of these areas, and so I get this benefit of just learning so much, and I love it. So these academic books, like the legal books, I get to go down these rabbit holes with my clients, and they're a great marketing source for sure.
So yeah, I'm a lawyer out there. What kind of advice do you have if they're thinking about a book or maybe one
Yeah.
day want to do a book? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that, first and foremost, I think it's a really great, a business calling card. If you think about it like this, what is the one thing you could do? And all you got to do is do it once. and it will give you returns every time you give it to someone, right? It's easily transferable. The beauty about a book is people think you're a subject matter expert if you wrote a book. It doesn't matter how dumb you are. If you write a book, people think you're a subject matter expert. And so here's the piece of advice I would give them. If you are going to do it well, right? Because the worst thing you can do is write a shoddy book. And what that means is it doesn't mean you have to hire me to write it, right? But you need to have professional cover design. You need to have professional formatting. You need to have an editor, right? These are all things that are so key in the book. Like the rest of it's the rest of it. How you publish, who really cares, things of that nature. But I mean, if someone picks up your book and the first thing they see is, some sort of grammatical error, I mean, at least my response is like, I'll tell you, I get a lot of resumes. You want to intern, whatever it may be. If I see a grammar issue, like I just put it in the pass pile. I'm not because I'm just like this begrudging, like, English guy. It's just, if you're not going to put the attention into a resume that you send me and you're going to misspell a word, like, you're probably not the right guy for me.
I'm with you 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, resume is maybe 1, 2, maybe nowadays you see a 3-pager. I mean, it's not that long. You better make sure that thing is
Per, per,
immaculate,
yeah,
right?
that's right. But it's a great calling card. I think more lawyers should do it. I mean, even if you invest in a writer because you can't get it done yourself, if that writer charges you a chunk of money, one good personal injury settlement, this is something that every single year, right? Think about it. If you use this, like if I told you, here's the deal, I'm gonna create something for you, and you can use it for 10 years. It's just, let's put a finite time on it. And every year you have to pay $5,000 for it. That's it. That's all you have to pay. It'll probably generate for you 4 to 5 cases a year. Do the math. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities out there for people to write books, and I think more people should because they're immediate credibility.
Yeah, it's here. I'm going to sell you this goose for 30 grand, but it's going to pop out a $5,000 egg every month for the
Yeah,
next 20 years. Yeah, I'll buy that any day. Right.
that's exactly right. That's how I feel about it too.
All right, so let's shift back to practicing law and building a law firm, running a law firm. So, any advice you'd give to perhaps someone who wants to start a firm, or maybe someone who's just started a firm, maybe building your practice or just building the firm? Advice?
Be a subject matter expert. Don't do everything. Be very clear about what you're good at and what, because here's the thing. People come into my office, and I mean, my practice personally in the criminal world is really about 50% impaired driving. That includes vehicular homicides, fatalities, serious injuries, 50% criminal defense, right? So major felonies, things of that nature. I think I become a subject matter expert on those two areas. I definitely think there are lawyers that are smarter than me, and I definitely think I learn every single day. But those are the things that when I take my resume and I put them against other lawyers, I know I stand up. And so, with that being said, it's because I focused 17, 18 years ago on those areas, and I've just cultivated them over the years. So that's one, be a subject matter expert. Can't be anything, can't be everything to everyone. And I think the second thing is that, you have to be patient. It's the worst advice in the world. Nothing pisses me off more than someone telling me to be patient, but it takes time to build a practice and, stay lean, service your clients, especially now when it's small, right? Like you grow, then you have to figure out how to serve more clients. I mean, so the struggle we have every day is how do we serve all the clients in our law firm? And look, sometimes we're not perfect, we fall short, but we take responsibility for our mistakes, and they're usually nominal, and we try to make them right, and we give people their platform, clients their platform. And I think on top of that, I'm trying to think of something like you don't hear every day. And this is what I'd say. Look at your clients not as liabilities, but as remarkable gifts that are in your life. These are the people that pay you money and support your family. And if you can flip that switch and think to yourself, I need to treat these people as the assets they are, not liabilities. It's not, oh man, I got to deal with John. He's such a jerk today. Oh, I got to deal with, Karen. She's driving me crazy. I live in that challenge every day, right? Like I do. There's clients that call me up and they just like they get my cortisol going. Like I get triggered by them. But I take a deep breath and I think to myself, look, these are the people that keep me in business. They're the way that I support my family. And I need to, at least from my mind, say, I am so thankful for these people so that when I get these calls and I'm immediately going to go to that bad place, right? We all do as lawyers. I think to myself, all right, like I'm thankful that I have these people in my life. And when I can do that, then it's all good. So I think that's an important part of it. And it's not something that everyone does.
That was beautiful, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
That's a
I
good
don't do it.
quote
I don't
there.
do it all the time. Some people just
That was
piss me
good.
off. Some people just piss me off. But it just giving yourself that mindset, right? It does give you it gives you like 10% more patience than you'd have otherwise. And sometimes that 10% is the difference between just being outright rude to a client and creating further controversy with them and conflict, or just resolving the issue.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So I want to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Be respectful of your time. But as you sit here today, your firm is fairly young. I know you've been practicing a while, but your new firm's fairly young.
Yeah.
Where do you see it? What's the vision? Where do you want it to go? And maybe to add to that, your book writing, whatever, where do you see your career going?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've grown this law firm. I mean, I have 3 associates. I'd like to think every one of them would say that they're compensated well. We work them hard, but I think growth is important. Consistently trying to grow, but doing so in a way where I'm not necessarily working as hard. And I'm not scared of hard work. I don't mind it whatsoever, but it's maximizing your time and doing it in a way where instead of working an 80-hour week, I'm working a 70-hour week and getting the same output. So I think it's this consistent evolution of working smarter while growing. So that's on the legal side. Also just, more wins, more wins. And wins can be many shapes and sizes, but for me, walking into courtrooms and winning cases, I still walk into I was 3 weeks ago, I was in Fitzgerald, Georgia, trying a significant sexual assault case where I represented a captain in the Marines, and we were able to secure a not guilty verdict on every charge. And it was a moment where it was a lot of work, a lot of energy, but we got outcomes. You get results. And that's what I think is more important to me now. The money's great. The clients are great. The size of the law firm's great, but I want outcomes. I want to win. I want to walk into a courtroom and I want to feel that I am the best lawyer in that courtroom. And then I want to prove that. So that on the legal side. On the writing side, I don't know. I want to continue to, I feel like the writing is the way I leave my print on the world. It's something I leave behind that has meaning. So I want to just continue working on projects that move me. That project, the Robb Elementary shooting and the Uvalde project is something that will never leave me. I did it. I was very hesitant to take the project because who wants to dive headfirst into a world of 19 dead children? It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Robb Elementary was horrible. Going to the cemetery was horrible. But let me tell you, it was one of the most emotionally challenging things I've ever done. But man, it gave me perspective that you'll never get. And you see people that have just suffered such significant loss that you can't even imagine, pain that you don't even understand in a setting that was preventable. That's the worst part. And I'm not even saying the shooting part. I'm talking about the police officer response part. And to see the spirit, the human spirit, the strength, that's when you leave there and you're like, wow, everything will be okay. So it's just, I want more of that,
All right. We got to end with that, man.
All right, man.
With that. But for anybody out there that wants to get in touch with you, maybe to talk legal shop or maybe to talk book writing, what's the best way? Maybe there's 2 different ways, but what's the best way to find you?
Yeah. Writing, Justin at justinspizman.com. Very easy. And then our law firm is the Spizman firm, hsflawfirm.com.
Well, Justin, man, that's been fun. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
All right. Enjoy your weekend.
You do the same.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.